Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue. Today's episode, we've got two special guests. We've got Rob Anati, who's our Director of Business Development, and we have, is that your title? Is that who you are? I always forget.
It's close enough. It's fine.
All right, it's close enough. And then we also have Roland George, who's a member of our Hemmings sales staff. Now, the reason these guys are on the show today is this is a Mopar episode. We are talking specifically B-Bodies, 1962 to 1979. We're also going to hit on the Mopar community as a whole. Not so much the new guys, but you old crusty bastards out there who nitpick every little thing and ruin it for most of the people at the car show. Okay? We know you have opinions, and they're okay. But 9 times out of 10, keep them to yourself because we don't want to hear them. We don't care. We like our stuff. So, guys, how are you doing? Are you guys ready to talk a little Mopar fun today?
I'm ready.
Absolutely.
I'm ready.
Mopar, Mike.
That's right. And I'm jealous
Right.
of Roland because he just went to the big Carlisle show too. We're gonna hear about that.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna hear about that. I have no doubt. So let's set those things straight. So, Rob, you are more of a 66, 67 B-body guy, right?
I'm trying to reform myself. I had a 66 satellite for 10 years, 361 car.
Okay.
Which technically is a big block, but it's the smallest of the big blocks. All original grandma car. It was cool. It was cool, but I was ready to, I want to get into 68 or 69 Roadrunner. But yeah, I love the B-Bodies.
Okay. So I'm 68 through 70, right? I've got a 68 Charger and a 69 Daytona clone. And then Roland, what's in your garage? Because you
So I love the fuselage style. So that's 71 through 74. It's a love-hate style, especially with the older guys, the crusty guys we're going to talk about later. But I'm in love with them. I love Richard Petty and NASCAR, and most beautiful car, in my opinion. It's my dream car, and I'm fortunate to say I have my dream car. So
it's awesome.
See, that's big. Now, there are also the Mopar B-Bodies from like 1962 to 66. And they're still really nice cars. I mean, we're talking about early Darts and early Polaris and Furies and stuff like that. And they're great cars. They're just not, how can I say this? Not overly desirable. However, if you can get your hands on one, you should, because they are just an outstanding way to get into the Mopar hobby. They're great values. The looks back then are a little quirky, but I think as time progresses, for me anyway, they've gotten better looking. What do you guys think?
I love them. I like that they're all like 1 year only body styles, and they're all really wild looking. I love the 63 Fury.
Mm-hmm.
I love the 65 Belvedere 1, like the post.
Yep.
Whatever you want to call it. I think those are just stunning cars. And some of the Max Wedge cars of that era are just,
oh my God,
just sick.
Yeah.
So, and some cool color combos like the black with a red interior and stuff like that. Just those, some of those cars really pop to me. So I love those cars. I'd love to have one.
And overabundance of chrome. You gotta love the chrome and the interior colors. Just they're the pre-luxury to muscle generation. So
yeah, and the old school steering wheel that'll poke your eyeball out.
Or it's so square where you're like, where do I put my hands?
You got some of them have the push button tranny,
push button transmission.
My old 63 Valiant convertible, I had one of those. Those are fun. So yeah, lots of neat little features, and definitely not the, and like you said, at the big shows you won't see so many. So it's a good way to get a unique car. You can find one.
Why do you guys think that, I guess, the earlier Mopars, and I guess Mopars in general, were always kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the big three, right? Everybody was either in the Ford or Chevy camp, but then if you were a Mopar person, you would come in and people would kind of look at you and be like, oh, you're that guy or you're that girl. Like, why do you think that was?
I think there's a variety of factors. So, just from a historical perspective, Ford and Chevy, out of the big three, they're bigger dogs than Chrysler. Sheer numbers, Chevy and Ford outproduced Chrysler in everything they had. So the fact that there's fewer of these Mopar products on the road means that there's fewer outlets by which to buy parts, replacement parts. And those who had it, it was a badge of honor to have it. You were pretty unique showing up with your car
Yeah.
if you were a Mopar owner, and still holds that today.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not for the new cars, but definitely for older cars. Yeah, I'm the only guy at local swap meets with a really cool Mopar.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely one of the factors there.
Right. Now, Roland, go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I got into Mopars because I couldn't afford what I wanted in high school, which is a 65 Mustang.
Really?
Okay.
You know, so I had this auto shop teacher, Mr. Smart, and he was always talking about how Chrysler products were superior in every way to the other two in terms of engineering. You know, he'd go on about the Slant Six. So when I had a chance to buy a 63 Valiant, I did. And then I think this happens to a lot of people. Once you buy that first one, you're just kind of stuck with it in your brain.
You're in.
Yeah.
And you're going to keep coming back to them. So the next one I got was a 70 Fury. And back then, well, these are wacky cars. But even like the Chargers and stuff, they were actually cheaper back then.
Oh, yeah.
The Fords and Chevys. And now that everything's flipped on its head, now the Mopars are some of the bigger dollar cars. But yeah.
Yeah, the Mopar stuff, it's interesting. I remember in high school, there were always Chevelles and there were always Mustangs and stuff like that. But you rarely saw any type of Mopar. You might see a Scamp or a Valiant, but they weren't like if you pulled up to the high school parking lot in a Scamp, like you weren't cool. You were just poor.
Yeah.
Like that's
exactly.
You know what I mean? People would just be like, "Oh yeah, that's a nice Scamp you got there. That's great. It's got a Slant Six in it, doesn't it? Yeah, that's nice." So, because I remember my grandmother. My grandmother had a Plymouth Scamp, and it was a tan top with baby shit brown paint and a brown interior and brown wheel covers. I don't think they just unloaded all the brown in that car. But that was a car that, like, when I was a little kid, like we drove around in Grandma's Scamp, and just kind of have fun. But as time progressed, and I think with more and more Chrysler products showing up in movies. And on television, I think that's when the popularity took over. Like Roland, you might be a little too young, but I know Rob isn't. Rob, do you remember It's a Mad World? Do you remember that movie?
A
Roland,
little bit.
Have you seen? Okay, so that movie had so many B-Bodies. It had Polaris and Furies, and they were like driven in anger. In Los Angeles. Roland, do you remember that?
Vaguely. I've seen the movie twice, but I know exactly the movie because we actually featured it in the E-Daily a few weeks ago. One of our editors talking about the cars in that
The
movie.
big one, though, of course, for our generation is Dukes of Hazzard, right? Like that just straight up. Like, and that was like, also the other thing about the Mopars are always the villain, right?
Yeah.
Or in a lot of the other movies, like the Mopar, the villain drove a Mopar and the nice guy drove a Chevy or a Ford. So there's a lot of Blue Velvet. Charger in there is nuts. Driven by the villain. So
we're the anti-hero, with
Bullet, of course.
Mary, Crazy Larry and Van.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a ton of them. I mean, even I guess Fast and the Furious. I mean, for everybody else, I mean it's crazy. But that movie's 20 years old now, the original one, and I feel like that took the Charger especially and threw it out to a whole crowd that might have been like kind of soft on Mopars or whatever. But yeah, I think throughout history, these cars they've always been there. And I think Chargers especially have gotten a lot of press and a lot of publicity because they've always been out there. But the fuselage cars, like Roland's, those cars, like you said, they're kind of a love it or hate it. And I think you're right, because when I first saw a 71, like with the grill, I was like, yeah, that's something. And I wasn't really keen on it. And then the older I got, you know what I mean? I was like, that's a thing. The older I got, now I honestly think it's one of the best looking cars that Chrysler made. I think it has such a presence to it in the best way. So overlooked. They're just so mean and so muscular. So
when you see them on the street, they really stand out. Really stand out. Like crazy.
They're so mean looking. So Roland, how did you come about tell everybody what you have and spec it out?
Sure. So I have a 1971 Plymouth Roadrunner. It is, in every meaning of the word, muscle car. It is bare bones. There's no radio, so it's radio delete. No special options whatsoever. It does have the 150 speedo and the tachometer. Has the A35 trailer tow package, which I actually hitch. But since I don't know the original story to it, I'm figuring out that the trailer tow package probably was a performance upgrade because you got the 26-inch
radiator.
That's a bigger radiator.
And just the story that went along with the car through different owners I tracked down. The car not only towed a Plymouth Duster in Missouri somewhere, but it also did some passes at the track. But again, I can't, find the actual history.
Yeah.
Other neat things about the car: no gull wing, no chin spoilers, no stripe. It was a striped elite car, which makes it look even better.
Sinister. Yeah.
And it's green.
F7 green. A lot of people don't like that color, but you see fewer and fewer cars because everyone goes up to the high impacts. This car stands out.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago when I first got the car, people were giving me, you should really paint that in violet or a petty blue. And I was like, no, I'm going to keep it the way it left the factory. Yeah. Now everyone loves the color. I mean, I got so many compliments on the way
to
Carlisle, even on the flatbed, which we'll get to a little later, but it's an awesome car. And I actually found it in Hemmings. That's the cool connection. Way before I worked for Hemmings,
That's
I found
cool.
it in a little classified ad. I have the issue. I tracked down when I started working here. Went to the
That's
archive,
awesome.
got a copy, and I have a little frame of the little classified ad I found the car in. So a lot of work, but it looks a lot better than it did when I bought it. And I'm really proud of the fact it does. So, 383 too. Standard, runner engine in there.
Is it a 727 bench seat car?
It's not a bench. It's actually it is a bucket seat car.
Oh, it is.
Console,
nice.
automatic. Yep. Yeah, it's very it's sporty, but it is every essence of the word muscle car. That's what I love about it. And I threw some dog dish, steel wheels on it. It looks even better. I used to have rallies on it, and I wanted to go for more low key look, and it really does accomplish that now.
That's awesome.
What drew you to those? What drew you to the fuselage cars?
One man. It was Richard Petty.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah. I absolutely love that car. Years ago, growing up, I didn't know what it was, but I just thought it was the coolest looking car. And, my first Mopar was a 65 Valiant with a slant 6, and got that run, and then it subsequently just died on me. And my dad acquired a 70 Fury. And I said, man, I really want a Mopar too. Like, he made Mopars cool. I grew up in a very Ford family, and I wanted to be the black sheep of the family. I didn't want to be a Ford guy. So I was looking, found a 73 Roadrunner in Virginia, and we got there. It was a POS. And my parents were like, you know what? You've always talked about this 71 Roadrunner that Richard Petty drove. Yeah. Why don't you set your eyes and sight on that? And 2 months later in the summer, I found it, and have it ever.
Where was it?
It was in Pittsburgh, actually, just outside of Pittsburgh. Drove the car home to right outside Atlantic City, where I grew up.
Nice.
Trip from hell. Like, everything was going wrong, but we
that makes sense.
And but yeah, Richard Petty is a huge influence. He actually signed my center console. Him and Dale Inman.
Oh wow.
Signed that. So it's neat, and so that's who I have to thank for that. But through the years, I got to meet Todd Hurlitz, who's the son of John Hurlitz, who not only designed the fuselage car for Plymouth, but he also designed the E-body Barracuda.
Nice.
And a lot of neat stories Todd's told me over the years about the intent, about the design that went into it, and how originally Chrysler was going to put this as a 70 model year, but Chrysler in their fashion always was a year late.
Yeah, right. They still are.
Still are.
Still are. Nothing's changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So then, Rob, you had the 67?
66 Satellite.
66. Yeah. So what drew you to that? Because the 66 Satellite, I mean, they were raced by Petty as well. And they're that's a good looking car. It's a very kind of sawed off and squarish car.
Very squarish.
It's a good looking car. So what drew you to that?
I think I got a copy of Mopar Muscle with a black GTX on it way back. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start looking for one of these. And the other thing is they will always be more affordable than the 68, 70 cars by a wide margin.
Oh, I feel like they're easily
like half or less, or a
half.
third.
Yeah,
for the same, and it's the exact same car. There's nothing really different.
I mean,
you get all the B-body goodness with them. What you're gonna have trouble getting any interior parts. You're gonna have trouble getting exterior trim parts. But you know, I got lucky, and it was on a message board, and found this really perfectly rust-free original paint car down in California. And I mean, $3,000. How can you go wrong, right? And the car was gorgeous, and it had a rare painted black top, which you almost never see with the
from the factory.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, you know.
Okay.
And yellow, and then black interior, and it's just a cool car. And it had the center console shifter, and it had cool bucket seats and all that stuff. You know, the Satellite was the deluxe top of the line car in '66 before '67. Then the GTX came in; it was the top. So the '66 Satellite are one of the highest production number of Hemi cars, as far as I know, because it was the first year of the true street Hemi.
Yep.
So yeah, just they're cool cars, you know. But yeah, I had it for 10 years. Good times.
Well, I'll tell you, we look at those, and I think like Roland's car, like the 71s through the 74s, the prices, I'm going to say in the last 7-8 years have jumped big time on those cars. I want to say they've probably doubled, right? The 66, 67 and earlier cars, those are they're still pretty. I mean, and it's not a knock. Please don't, you know, I don't want that to come across as a knock on those years, because I think that if you have 15 grand, you know,
oh yeah, you'll do fine.
You can still go out and you could still get a really nice, I mean,
and we're not talking, you can get a big block
car. You're not talking about a slant six. Like you can go out there, get a 383 or a 440 car that's 100% a runner.
And they're going to be cheaper than the 63 to 65 cars too. I mean, they really are the cheapest.
Yeah.
And if you get a 67 Charger or 66 Charger, to me, that is the coolest looking interior with the coolest dash of any muscle car ever. Just sick. It's like the gauges or whatever. I mean, the fantastic design.
That car was so far ahead of its time interior wise. So the round gauges, when you turn them on, the gauges lit up and they were backlit almost blue. And Chrysler had I think they called it electroluminescent or something along those lines, if I'm not mistaken. But the cool part was it was like a flipping SUV, because the back seats,
unbelievable.
They had the center console, and the center console in a 66, 67 Charger ran from the front of the car to the back of the car. Right. And the seats would fold down flat, the rear seats. You basically had an SUV in the back of that thing. And
those are cool cars, man.
Oh, they are so wicked. And they still had the flush hideaway grill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they still, I mean, it was kind of it looked a little AMC
funky.
Marlin-ish, right? Because it had that kind of fastback design. And the front was basically a Coronet, you know, Coronet-ish, I should say.
But those are relatively affordable. I mean, comparatively.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
But I think they're under. I have a friend of mine that's got a 67 426 car.
Yeah.
And I've driven that car, and it's spectacular. The funny part is a lot of people just don't know what it is. Even though it says Charger on the side and on the back. They
didn't know what my car was ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other good thing about 66, 67 is cleanest lines for a convertible out there.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what we were talking about. Tommy Boy, the 67 convertible in there is hilarious. Hero car.
Well, David Spade, he is a Mopar guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a big Mopar guy, right? Because Joe Dirt and all that stuff.
Joe, yeah, I know. Well, when I saw the Daytona and Joe Dirt, I stood up and cheered for obvious reasons, you know. But I just remember him going through like Rob and I were talking about this offline. We were just talking about like flipping through the old classified sections and like Hemmings or in any of the buy and sells, and being like, what? You know, $7 grand? That's ridiculous. This car's not worth $2 grand. And, you know, as a kid, I remember doing that. We'd flip through all the magazines and look before the internet showed up. And, but I think the B-Bodies in general, I remember, because that was Chrysler's intermediate, right? A-body was the compact, B-body was the intermediate, C-body was the big, and then you had E-body, which was the pony car.
Yeah.
And as an intermediate by today's standards, you know, it like my Charger is 17 feet long. That's not a small car.
Yeah, not at all.
You know, and it's also 6 feet wide. Like it's a big car.
But it's a good overall size, and they're comfortable. There's something, and especially in the front seats, there's something about the way they ride. I don't know what it is, but they're comfortable cars.
Well, as somebody who's told, Roland can attest to this because Roland's a big dude. Like B-bodies fit big people.
Yeah,
I think. Like if you are over 6 feet tall, like you will have trouble getting into a Scamp or like a like an early Barracuda or something like that. Get into a B-body and you're just like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
Like that you just fit and they're great. And the other part is I think, and this is where I'm going to get a little snobbish because I love, like for me, it's 68 through 70. Those are my years. And I look at that as kind of the pinnacle of muscle car design, though, and that's from almost every manufacturer. But between the Charger and the Coronets and the Belvederes and the Roadrunners and everything else, I just think those were the best designs for Chrysler Corporation and Dodge. I just think they were amazing.
Yeah, 68 was a huge year, right? Because you have the 68 Charger, which just blew everybody's mind, and you have the 68 Roadrunner, which was like a pretty wild concept back then. They're like, let's make the cheapest possible muscle car. Whereas muscle cars up to then have been kind of the higher end, like the GTO, like higher trim.
Yeah.
They're like no trim.
Well, that's it. Dude, think of some of the options. Think like Mopar did some of the craziest. Like, do you remember the Mcode Roadrunners with the lift? Roland, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was an Mcode car, right? With the lift off hood with the 4 stilts.
Yeah, that's the A12 446 pack, 69 and a half.
Right.
Super Beat and the Roadrunners.
Yeah.
Yep. But that was the thing. Like you couldn't open your hood per se. You literally had to take your hood off and then post it on 4 stilts or set it on the roof of your car in order to work. The dumbest thing ever, right?
The marketing devices, like, are you guys familiar with these stationary wheels?
Yeah, those are really awesome.
Oh,
I mean, like, who else does that and why? But
and a little meat horn with a little Roadrunner on it.
Plus $50,000. Warner Brothers is like, we're gonna do it.
I mean, well, also the air grabbers. So the air grabber is one of my favorite all-time features in the history of the world on any automobile. Like the vacuum op, for those that don't know who aren't Mopar people, like an air grabber on like a 71 car. Yeah. My God, you'd hit the button and the air grabber hood, the vent would come up and it had shark teeth.
Little shark.
And I'm like, that is it's just so good. Yeah. It's just Chrysler, they did stuff like that and they pushed the envelope with the high impact colors and pistol grip shifters and air grabbers and lift off hoods and stuff, and then they made the Daytona, which is the dumbest looking car I've ever seen. I can say that because I own one. So it's like, but I mean, when you look at that car, can you imagine walking into a showroom and seeing that ridiculous looking thing in the showroom and then looking at your wife and being like, so, honey, what do you think of this? Right.
And then the number of engines you could order for any of these, you could order it with a slant 6, a 273, a 318, 361, 383, 440, Hemi, the options were endless.
Well, so what do you guys, because my interpretation, and correct me if I'm wrong, was most Chrysler B-bodies, I'm going to say most Chryslers in general, from that era, were from an interior perspective, okay, and I'm probably going to annoy some people, were pretty crappy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But right, they were pretty bad. Like I've taken my cars apart, and I'm like, this is terrible. Like this is worse.
I don't think it was the emphasis.
No, but the drivetrains and the engines and they were absolutely bomb-proof, right?
Well, the 727 is legendary. That transmission is nuts.
The Dana 60, I mean, it's for all six purposes a truck rear end, and I mean, the military would use them. It's just bulletproof.
Yep.
And I think the Slant 6 is probably the most indestructible motor ever built.
Leaning tower of power. I mean,
What I love about the Slant Six is like I have a 4-liter in my 2002 Grand Cherokee, and it's basically a Slant Six. It's essentially the same exact motor with a different intake on it.
I saw there used to be a video on YouTube of some guys took a Slant Six and they drained out all the oil of it and out of it and just ran it and ran it. It was like on a stand, and it just the whole engine turned bright red, and it just kept going and going, and finally they got tired of it and just stopped it.
They shut it off.
Yeah, because they're like, I thought it would break or something, but it's still going. They're just like running out of video here.
Well, I think that's the other part that people don't understand. I mean, I know from my experience, like my 68, my Charger is a 440 car, cast iron. It's got 906 heads. It's still got stock rockers and push rods, you know, intake and carb, but that's about it. There's really nothing, you know, crazy in there. I have put over 60,000, like literally foot to the floor, beat to death miles through that motor and drivetrain. I mean, knock on wood, like I haven't broken it yet. And that's, it just keeps taking it. It's amazing to me.
Well, and the other things that makes them different, right, is the other intermediates were not unibody, right? The Ford and Chevy versions were not.
That's right. That's right.
And then I think that was the torsion bar stuff fairly unique to Mopar too.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of
sure.
things that were very unique about these cars.
Sure. Well, I mean, when you touch on torsion bars, right? A lot of people like scoff at torsion bars. People kind of forget, like, say what you will, but like 911s were torsion bar cars. All 911s were torsion bar, Porsche 911. So like they work really, really well. And if you've ever driven a properly set up torsion bar car, they're kind of fantastic.
Yeah,
they are. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you put a good sway bar on them, they actually handle half decent. They're not terrible handlers.
No, not at all. So Roland, let me ask you this. All right. So you've got the fuselage car. So what else would you buy and why? Like what other B-body is on kind of your list, or do you have one? Or
so you know, the 71 Charger would definitely be on my list. RT, and I want those, I don't know what you call them, but the taillight's unique. Love the little gills in the door, the highway headlights. I mean, that totally option car. I would love to have that. But actually, I also dig a 68 Roadrunner, and Rob on the show a couple weeks ago said how much he'd want just a base, you know, rubber mats. I would love a 4-speed 383, ugliest color, you know, give me the car, I don't care. I just find that so appealing. So I would love to own a 68 Roadrunner, totally, you know, bare bones though.
Yeah.
Crazy, but 71 Charger, fully option. I'd love to have gone back in time and do that for sure.
Gotcha. Rob, what about you?
68, 69 Roadrunner. I think I also mentioned I love the 63 Furies. They're hilarious. I think partially because I had a 63 Valiant, but the 63 Fury is really cool. And like I said, the 65 Belvedere ones are awesome, I think. Those would probably be the ones. I love the Coronet RT of the 68. I think it's got the coolest tail lights of just about any car.
Yep.
So yeah, those are, I mean, I'd be happy with any of those, honestly. Those are all cool.
Yeah, I think those are all top notch.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, what about you?
Get?
Me, honestly, I've never had an E-body. I mean, I'm totally throwing it out there. I would love to experience an E-body. I've had a C-body. I had a 70 Chrysler Newport that I loved and would buy again in a heartbeat. It's one of the few cars I truly regret selling was my Newport.
That's the same, but the only car I ever regret selling is my 70 Fury 3 convertible.
Yeah. And it was
sad still.
Dude, I am too. I mean, I had the cleanest Newport in the world. It was a 383 power window, AC car, no vinyl top. Every single thing worked perfectly.
Yeah. And
like an idiot, I sold it and I bought an 81 Turbo Trans Am, which is the dumbest thing you can do. Yes. But I had to check it off the list, which I did. But man, I'd buy that car back. And if anybody is out there and listening to this and you have a white 70 Chrysler Newport and you're in Texas, because that's, I believe, where the car was, with a teal interior, AC, power windows, 383 car with wheel covers, it might be my old car. If you got it from San Francisco, let me know, and I will literally buy it back from you tomorrow. So I'm just throwing that out there. So, but let's talk for a second about Mopar people.
They're special.
So, they're special. So,
nice way of putting it.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out the most correct way to say they're special. I think they are the most critical of everyone else's stuff for some unknown reason to me.
Well, it might go back to what we were saying in the beginning. Like, I think Mopar people used to be picked on a lot by other people. And they maybe have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they take it out on each other at their shows.
But what would you, all right, so let me ask you this. Like, we all love these cars. Would you ever go up to somebody and just be like, yeah, that's wrong, or that looks bad? Like, I've had people come up to me and look at like the wheels of my car and be like, those are terrible. I'm like, what? Okay, thanks, I guess. Like, would you ever say that to anybody? Would you ever
think that's unique to Mopar people? Or I mean, I feel like
that sounds more like a vet guy to me.
Yeah, I was about to say Corvette people.
But no, you know the answer. So I will say, because there'll be plenty of Mopar people I know listening to this. You know, it is one of the tightest community, like most car communities, but it is a family. It is a brother.
Oh, it is. Oh, yes. Yeah. Once you're in, you're in. That's right.
But there are guys, like you said, that will say those wheels suck. And you know what? A couple of my buddies said to me, you look them straight in the eye and you go, "Where's yours?"
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they don't have a car.
Yeah.
Or, you know. But yeah, there are guys out there that will poke fun of, oh, he's got the wrong, ECU, or he's got the wrong, he's running a billet distributor. Like, what? That's a factory.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny. There are a couple of boards out there. I mean, when I first got it started in Mopars, I was a member of the Dodge Charger board, and I still am. I just haven't posted there in a while. And there's a board called Moparts out there, and
that's where Mike and I met. Was on Moparts.
Yeah, was on Moparts. Yeah, and listen, the knowledge base that's there is just, it's absurd. I mean, the knowledge base there. You have a question, someone will have the answer for you. So I will forever be indebted to literally those two websites, dodgecharger.com and moparts.com. Yeah. However, there is that kind of flip side to it. Now, Roland, I know you just went to Chrysler's at Carlisle, correct?
Did, yeah. Great time.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
And you're one of the few that actually drove their car to Chrysler's at Carlisle. At least part of the way.
Attempted to do so, yeah.
So walk us, what happened? What happened?
So I did. I attended. We had just dropped the numbers matching block into the car. So reunited, felt so good. Put a few miles on it here. And I said, the trip to Carlisle is going to be the magical break-in period. And it was beautiful. There were birds singing, I didn't have a radio. I could hear music playing in the background. And, 3 hours in, made one gas stop good, but 3 hours in, next gas stop, get off the exit, car shuts off. I go, try to turn it back on, and smoke just starts pouring out from the ammeter gauge.
Oh, God.
Turn it off, run out, disconnect the battery. Turns out, and this is the Achilles heel for a lot of Mopar guys know, the ammeter gauge, there's so much juice running directly from the alternator to the ammeter gauge. Fried up the wires. I actually burnt my hand. I had blisters on my finger from reaching under. Stupid mistake. End up getting a flatbed. $700 later, I end up in Carlisle. And
nice.
Yeah.
So you were by yourself, right?
Yeah, I had a buddy, Chad. So shout out to Chad. He was in a 70, his Challenger, but he ended up moving forward ahead of me because I wasn't going to make him wait around with a flatbed. But I ended up by myself with the driver.
You got to upgrade your AAA. Sounds like maybe.
Yo, AAA left you stranded, didn't they?
AAA left me stranded. I'm a premium member.
Yeah, this is not cool, man. Because I'm a premier member, and like
I've been for like 25 years.
This is not good.
No, they told me that first they put me in Carlisle, and I said I'm not in Carlisle. I'm about 2 hours away from Carlisle because the tow truck guy calls me and says, "Where are you?" And he goes, "I'm in Carlisle." I said, "I'm not there," and And then they said the next driver available will be on Monday. And I said, I'm not sitting here.
Monday.
on Monday. So
Nice.
you gotta do what you gotta do to get to Carlisle. That's the Carlisle way of life, though. But it was a great show. It was a record-breaking year, and just a shout out to all those guys. You know,
that's awesome.
We have a great relationship with that whole crew out there with Hemmings.
Yep.
No,
I commend.
It's a great outfit.
Yeah, they did such a great job. I don't know how they did it. 3,000 cars. It was record-breaking.
Wow.
It was smooth as butter. I mean, everyone was great to each other. I didn't see one fight, one argument. It was a big Mopar love fest. So,
what were some of the best cars you saw there? Anything? Any standouts?
So, yeah, this was a really cool show. So they were celebrating the 50th anniversary of 1971. So I saw a lot of cool cars.
Nice.
A lot of survivor cars. There was a 69 Daytona barn find Hemi. It was really neat. But the coolest car, and I actually have it right here, I'm going to show you, which debuted for the first time in years, was this car. This was the Lovebird 70 Roadrunner with the bird head in the advertisement, if you're familiar with it.
Oh, yes. Wow. Yeah.
That car has finally been restored, and it made its debut at Carlisle. And it's amazing. The guy had the bird head done.
That's awesome.
It was fantastic to see it in person. It's going to be at McCacken and a few more shows this year. A lot of cool cars. I mean, beautiful. They had a paint, drag racing paint show area. They did a tribute to Mr. Norm, who passed away earlier this year.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see. And it was a good time. You know, like I said, everyone was all smiles. People were helping each other out.
Yeah.
The meet was fantastic. I was there last year, pretty strong despite the pandemic. But this year, everyone and their mother was out there.
That's great.
Let me ask you, were there a lot of resto mod cars there? Did you see a lot of, because that was used to be frowned upon especially at Carlisle. But I mean, did you see a lot of like Gen 3 Hemi swap cars and stuff like that? Are they starting to become more prevalent now?
Yeah, there are quite a few out there. And one of the most striking ones, I believe it was a Dodge Polara wagon with a Hellcat swap.
I saw that. It was that the red one with the wood panel.
Yes, with the wood.
I know that wagon. Yeah.
That was there. Yeah, there's a lot of Gen 3 Hemi swaps, upgraded suspensions. It's pretty impressive. And a lot of younger guys doing it too. So it was really neat to see.
Okay.
But mostly still a lot of factory and just, performance upgrades is still the prevalent, thing in the field.
When I guess the older generation, I don't know any other way to say that. What were their views on the resto mod cars? Because I remember years ago, and we're going back almost 20 years, when I first pro toured my car out. Now my car wouldn't even be considered pro touring; it would just be considered a mild resto mod. But the heat that I got for doing that was ridiculous. Do you think that people are starting to come around to this? Because listen, the fact of the matter is, I don't think anybody is like, big blocks are great. There's no question. But nobody, I mean, Chrysler they're making 700 horsepower street motors now that are reliable. So are people scoffing at this, or were they pretty okay with it, you think?
I think it's still split, to be honest with you. There was a healthy, one of the great things at these huge swap meets and shows is you get to, listen to conversations going when people looking at the cars and all that. And there were some guys who were looking at these modified, Mopars going, ugh, we ruined it. But surprisingly, there was quite a few, I'd say more than half were very open to it. Okay. And the guys who are still in that older camp, there's still this like weird tension between the new generation, SRT8s, the Chargers and Challengers in the 2000s. There's still this buffer there for some of them, but for the most part, it's finally getting accepted. You can modify these older vehicles, guys. Like, there's nothing wrong with doing that, and it's good because that's what we need.
How big was the kind of LX segment versus the older stuff? I assume there's a big LX presence.
Huge. So the Hill, if anyone's familiar with the Hill in Carlisle, that was covered.
Yeah.
Completely covered. And you have things from Crossfires, the new parts.
Yeah.
Sure.
Jeeps, Challengers, Chargers.
The gamut.
Yeah. The neons, like there's a whole group of neon.
Gotta love the neons.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's cool. But they all do stay in it's weird. They have these tribes And they'll occasionally venture in, but you'd know who the neon guy is.
Oh yeah.
To the guy with the 68 Charger, you got the guys with the all Mopar engine shirts, or the cars are on their shirts, and then you got the guys, wearing flat caps and hoodies.
Yeah.
It's like West Side Story for cars.
Oh yeah, big time.
Oh my God. Well, that's very, very cool, man. I'm glad to see that finally those cars are being accepted, because, we don't really think about it now, but those cars now are 15 years old, right? They came out 2005, 2006, that platform. Early Chargers and Magnums and Chrysler 300s and whatnot. And there is a massive, massive following behind that, right?
Huge. And Dodge has done a great job just keeping that whole thing alive and continuing to come out with cool stuff,
Yeah. So let's throw this out. Was there any rumblings of the EMuscle? Because I'm gonna have to call. I'm gonna call Tim Kaniskis back up. He was the first guest we ever had on the podcast. I want to talk to him about this whole EMuscle. So what? Because I'm absolutely. My thought is that if anyone is going to pull off the world's baddest electric car, it's going to be Dodge. There's not a doubt in my mind that it's going to come out and I'm going to be like, shit, now I got to go buy one of those.
Well, it was interesting because Dodge was not there. They're there all the time.
Yeah.
Their big tent, the thrill rides. There were some people, chowing on one of the big smoky dogs that, you get at the fairgrounds there, and you're in the little dining area, and you're hearing guys often dropping expletives post announcement saying this is why they're not here, because they wouldn't be able to handle our frustration. And I said, that sounds very conspiracy theory-esque, but it was interesting because the timing could not be more perfect. Not showing up to one of the biggest Mopar shows in the country, and then the day before, we're doing EVs, guys, and the younger guys are definitely more accepting of it.
Yeah.
When I would overhear, I actually talked to a few guys, some of the Crossfire guys, and a lot of the Mopars in Motion, some of the guys from Jersey I knew, they were all about it. They said, listen, anything that can make me go faster than these other guys, I'm all for it. So, but the older guys still were holding out, saying it's the worst idea ever. Like, how could Dodge do something like that? The guys with the tattoos, I've branded myself for life and they're going to go EVs. But I said,
but then you get a tattoo on that. Whatever. I probably shouldn't comment on that, but what, you're going to brand it. What? Never mind. Anyway, I think that if you look at, it's coming, right? We all know it's coming. You are not going to stop it. I don't understand how you could get mad at the company for innovating and pushing it forward, especially since you're coming off the heels. And their ad for EMuscle, I thought, was brilliant, right? You had guys sitting in Challengers with Hellcats doing burnouts, being like, Chrysler's going to do what? Dodge is going to do what?
Yeah.
These are guys that are sitting in I'm putting a red-eye motor in the Daytona, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
I am pretty vehement against putting electric motors in older vehicles, because I think an older vehicle, that is the heart and soul of that. And I don't care if it's a slant 6 or a 318 or a Hemi, right? It adds the character. So when you remove that heart and you put an EV motor in there, it saps that completely. However, if a vehicle is designed from the ground up with that power plant, and the body and the interior and the concept around it fits that, then I'm 100% on board with it,
Yeah.
And plus, how are you going to stop it? People want Hellcats and everything for the next 25 years. It's like, come on, guys, you got to evolve a little bit.
Got to innovate. Yep. Stay ahead of the curve.
So, well, that was a pretty quick hour. All right.
An hour. Holy cow.
That was almost an hour. Yeah. We're 8 minutes shy of an hour. So any closing thoughts on B-Bodies, on what people should go out and buy, on the pitfalls or the pros of owning them? What, I don't know. Rob, you go first, then Roland.
It's rust, right, is the main thing always. The value is going to be in the 66, 67 cars. Wagons are rare and cool if you can find one. I love the convertibles. 383 is a killer little motor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think they're all fun. You can have fun with any of them and get in and play with it and see what you like, and move up to the next one if you have money, or stay where you are. But I mean, they're fun cars, and it's a good community, even though they're a little annoying at times too. So you'll have some support.
Roland, what do you think?
I'd agree with Rob for sure. Like any older vehicle, rust, but for some reason, Mopar. I mean, guys, check those drip rail moldings. Check.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh God.
Check your quarters, your rockers.
Orders.
Well, true story. I found a beach towel in my rocker when we were doing the body work on my Roadrunner. So, yeah.
If you're in California, look in the trunk.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, just not everything has to have a Hemi. I think that's a major misconception about Mopar guys. Like if it doesn't have a Hemi, it's worthless. That's not. That can't be further from the truth. My 383, I love it. It's pretty much bulletproof. You can have fun with a slant 6. I mean,
oh yeah.
And if you have a small block car, you can swap in the newer 360 real easy, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Easy.
So that's another really easy, like straight junkyard swap. To get you some real power, even.
And even if you find an automatic, the kits they're making to convert.
Oh, they're great.
They're fantastic. I mean, you can't beat it. Just pick the car that you want to pick, and don't let anybody else really influence your decision, and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's dead on. I think Mopar will always continue to be the redheaded stepchild, especially in the muscle car world. But I think they are becoming a lot more accepted. I personally enjoy having something that nobody else has, or something that's that far out of the realm where people just look at you and go, "Oh, you're that guy." It's kind of fun being that guy or that woman, that person every now and then. But yeah, don't be afraid to buy the oddball either. Don't be afraid to get like the early, Dart or a Dodge 330 or a Satellite or and the other part is like buy a 4-door for God's sakes. Like if you want buy a 4-door Satellite and make something wicked out of that, because
awesome cop cars out there that are like,
oh my God.
Yep.
Yeah, like I'd buy a 4-door in a minute. So I guess where we're at, I think all of us are just trying to say, just go buy one. Right? It doesn't really matter what you buy. Just get into the hobby any way you can. I think because once you get in, Rob was right when he said earlier, like once you get into a Mopar, you're kind of screwed because they don't go away.
Yeah, you can just keep coming back.
They just linger. So, well, on that note, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on and Roland and Rob talking Mopars and stuff like this. I'm going to try to get Kaniskis on this show, Tim Kaniskis, who's
That'd be awesome.
FCA Passengers, or Stellantis passenger cars right now, that I should say. Talk a little bit about EV in the future. But yeah, that was a fast hour. That was it.
A lot of fun.
Cool.
All right. Well, everyone, that's it. So I hope you finished your beer or your coffee, and we'll see you later.
Adios.
See you later.
Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.